need to go to Facebook.com and search for Patriots of Act 746. They are a closed group. Ask to join and get educated and join the sensation today, the Patriots of Act 746. Here to talk more about this, we have Patriots of Act 746. Mr. Dan Borum is with us. Dan, welcome back, sir.
Hey, good morning, Paul. How are you?
Man, I am doing fantastic. Now, I understand, Dan, that you were kind of integral in putting on this debate that happened, I think it was over in Alma, between Senator Brian King and State Representative Bob Ballinger in the Republican primary for Senate District 5. How'd that turn out?
Turned out really good. Yes, it was in Alma at Warren's Rec Room, which is a great venue for events of that nature. We had the Mayor Gary Baxter of Mulberry, Arkansas, moderating, and Mr. Bill Vines that served as assistant moderator. They both did a great job, and I was really thankful that they offered their time to do that. Let me lay out the format just a little bit. What each candidate submitted 3 questions that only Mayor Baxter, the moderator, was going to be aware of. They were able to submit 3 questions that they wanted their opponent to be asked, and also 3 questions that they wanted to be asked by the moderator. And then the audience was allowed to submit written questions, in which the assistant, Bill Vines, was going to sift through those and submit them as well. And so the format, I thought, was really good and very fair. And so one of the questions submitted by the audience was to Brian King and Bob Ballinger concerning their different styles of gun legislation based upon Brian King's legislation in 2000, which he'd been working on, I think, since 2011, and it finally came to be in 2013. I believe it was Senate Bill 71, but it was the Church Protection Act, in comparison to the legislation that Representative Ballinger championed with the enhanced carry bill. Mm-hmm. And so the styles are totally different, and so they both championed themselves as great Second Amendment advocates. But if you look at it very closely, you look at the Church Protection Act, in which Brian King was the leading sponsor in the Senate, and then we see that if you look back, you'll see that Nate Bell was the one in the House, in the Representatives side, that led on the House side with that bill. But what that did, before that Church Protection Act, the government told churches that they were not allowed to have concealed carry permit holders carrying a weapon in their churches, which is absolutely ridiculous that the government would tell the churches what they could do and what they could not do concerning our constitutional rights and alienable rights as far as that goes. So with that bill, it totally removed government interference out from the churches and left it to the churches to determine what they wanted to do concerning the carrying of a weapon within the walls of the church building. And so that totally removed any government interference. Now, that's good legislation. Mm-hmm. When you remove government out from our lives, that's outstanding legislation. Now, in return, look at the enhanced carry legislation. That didn't remove government out from our lives. It brought more government into our lives. While Senator
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us, and hope everybody's morning is going absolutely terrific. My name is Paul. This is Conduit News Radio. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. If you want to help us do that, the phone number there, you can see it on the screen for those of you watching at conduitnews.com or facebook.com/conduitnews. But it's 870-275-9799. Call or text that number, 870-275-9799. Tomorrow on the program at 7:33 tomorrow, we'll be talking with State Senator Brian King. Just going to check in with him. And one of the reasons I really, this is very interesting. So Senator King and Bob Ballinger, they had a debate. And we actually had Mr. Dan Borum on the program from Patriots of X 746 yesterday and was talking about how that debate went. Of course, it's a Republican primary between the two, you know. And it was an interesting take on, on the Second Amendment. It was an interesting take on how, both of them claimed to have, advanced the Second Amendment. But in Dan Borum, and I kind of agree too. I mean, I do agree with Dan's observation of, which bill actually got government out of the way, which would have been Brian King's Church Protection Act, which gave churches the ability to set their own security policy, versus the enhanced carry bill, which was an absolute, it's just a garbage bill, number one, this enhanced carry, more red tape, everything else. But more than that, I was down there for the process of that enhanced carry mess, and I saw Republicans just trying to protect ASA. ASA did not, and yet I don't understand why the legislature won't just use their veto or their veto override authority, because it's very simple to do. You just need a simple majority. But these guys have got to quit running cover. And honestly, the idea of 4 more years of Governor Asa Hutchinson governing the way he is and the way he's treating the legislature, and he is, Asa gets to basically be the standard bearer to decide what conservatism is. That's why he's having so much trouble in this primary right now, because his record's being exposed and people are getting more educated as to how much government's grown and everything else. And by the way, I want to revisit some of his old campaign ads from 2006 and from 2014. Later in the program. I know how that went down. I was there for it. I saw the revisions. I was interviewing State Representative Charlie Collins here and there on this bill because he was trying to get it done. It was just a very simple bill. Let's let professors carry in the existing permission slip system. If you got a concealed carry license and you're a professor or you're university employee, you'd be able to carry. It's pretty simple. No. ASA did not approve of that. The guy that supposedly led the task force after the Sandy Hook massacre for the NRA is, no, we can't have professors who have concealed carry permits having guns. He didn't like that. Didn't approve. He doesn't trust them with a weapon. Now, what Republicans should have done is just put the most conservative bill on a piece of paper and voted on it. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to send something to Asa's desk that he felt he was opposed to, because for number one, the corporate, the universities and everything, they were putting all this pressure on him, and he didn't want to stand up to them and be like, well, listen, this is what the people want. It's a state-funded. These are state-funded universities, and this is how the people think they should operate. I don't care what the university administrators say. I don't care what you say. This is about, anyway. We have a system in many cases where the institutions themselves that are funded by the taxpayers, I mean, whether you're a bureaucracy or whether you're a university, they somehow think that they are above the control of the people of the state of Arkansas. They really do. Anyway, I say all that to say this. So, Senator King coming on the program tomorrow, and I was reading in the Madison County Record about this editorial, or I was reading the editorial from yesterday. The headline was "The Muddied Waters of Ecclesia, General Improvement Funds, and Representative Bob Ballinger." And I thought this was interesting because it was the Madison County Record, I believe, that stood up, and we played that audio for you at the time. When State Representative Bob Ballinger was talking about his FOIA bill, okay, and, of course, a Conduit for Action was on top of how bad of a bill that was. In many ways, instrumental in letting everybody know that this was an attempt to gut the FOIA. Well, Bob said at some point in that debate that the Press Association didn't oppose it. Well, the Madison County Record stood up and said, I'm part of the press, so we've always opposed it. We did oppose that bill. It would have done terrible things for FOIA. And I think that little interaction at the debate, kind of maybe spurred this editorial that you see right here on your screen. So here it is. I'm going to read it because it is interesting. And some of the stuff we have talked with State Representative Ballinger before when he's on the program and, in the back and forth. As information has continued to come out regarding the transfer of subsequent illegal use of taxpayer money to Ecclesia College of Springdale over the last couple of weeks, we've been left with more questions than answers. Those questions in particular are for our current District 97 state representative and candidate for the District 5 Senate seat, Bob Ballinger. While there is no proof that Representative Ballinger committed any illegal acts, and we are not implying that he did, there are several indisputable facts regarding Ecclesia and Representative Ballinger's role with the college and in the legislature that give us pause. In 2013, Representative Ballinger was one of 9 legislators to direct what totaled to be several hundreds of thousands of dollars in general improvement funds to Ecclesia, a financially unstable private Christian college. Of those 9, Mr. Ballinger directed a total of $8,500 to the college, the lowest of any legislator who donated to the college that year. Former Senator John Woods directed $350,000 to the college and is in the midst of a weeks-long trial now over allegations that he received kickback funds from the college for his donation of the GIF monies. We know all of this. We know that former Representative Mike Neal committed $50,000 to the college. He has pleaded guilty to fraud charges. The college's president, Orrin Parrish III, has also pleaded guilty to fraud charges related to the kickback scheme. According to various reports, the college requested the funds to purchase a large plot of land to house students. While Representative Ballinger is not suspected of receiving kickback funds for his direction of GIF funds to the college, he has performed work for the college in the years since he directed funds to it. The law firm for which Ballinger currently works represented Mr. Parrish in his indictment, and Representative Ballinger performed the closing title work on the purchase of the land Ecclesia bought. That land was sold to Ecclesia for around $675,000, despite being valued at around $200,000. Ballinger stated on a Facebook post last week that, quote, "Almost all the work I did for the college was at a discount because I was helping a ministry." Last week, Representative Ballinger supported SB 373, which would provide exemptions to certain private entities, such as Ecclesia College. He did this last year, from having to disclose financial dealings to public. So that's what this would have done. SB 373 would have provided exemptions to certain private entities, such as Ecclesia College, from having to disclose financial dealings to the public despite receiving taxpayer funds. At the time, at the April 19th debate, Representative Ballinger falsely stated that the Arkansas Press Association did not oppose the legislation. Record publisher Ellen Kreth, a sitting member on the Press Association board, pointed out to Ballinger and the audience that the Press Association was very vocal in its opposition to the legislation. Despite having the truth pointed out to him, Representative Ballinger doubled down on his claim that the Press Association did not oppose the legislation, again at a debate last Friday in Alma. Note, the Record has obtained video footage of Representative Ballinger recognizing APA opposition to SB 373 during a committee hearing last year. Oh, really? I didn't know that. So, that's interesting. Because, see, at that debate, there were actually two debates. So at the debate, I can't remember where it was. It's not the one in Alma. It's the one on April the 19th. He said, well, I'm chairman of state agencies, so if you guys had been opposed to it, I think I would have known. And the Record, Madison County Record, is saying, yeah, you did know. We have video footage of you saying that they are opposed to it. So you did know they were opposed to it. Interesting. Generally, the purpose of GIF funds, the Madison County Record writes, which Governor Asa Hutchinson stated last month are now a thing of the past, presumably due to largely its lack of oversight or checks and balances. The purpose of GIF was to give legislators a means of helping programs and communities within their district. While portions of Springdale are in Representative Ballinger's district, Ecclesia College itself is not. It could certainly be argued that funds should go to programs that aren't necessarily in a legislator's district, but do help areas in that district. For example, Representative Ballinger could direct funds to the Huntsville Fire Department through the department itself. Though the department itself falls just outside of his district. Ecclesia College, however, is a private religious school that benefits only those who can afford tuition and share religious persuasion with the school. According to various online sources, Ecclesia College has an enrollment of less than 300 students. Despite Mr. Parris's guilty plea and Representative Ballinger working for Mr. Parris's legal representation, Representative Ballinger has repeatedly defended Mr. Parris's innocence. The week before Mr. Parris pleaded guilty, Representative Ballinger was quoted in a Madison County Record article stating, in regards to Mr. Parris, quote, "There's a lot going on in this case. Someone should step back and say, hold on, maybe in this case Orrin is innocent, and in this case he is." End quote. On a Facebook post last week, Representative Ballinger commented, quote, "Even the college president was a pawn in the scheme." And he stated in the Alma debate that he never stated Mr. Parris never did anything wrong. The Walton Family Foundation Director of Special Projects, Nackaman Williams, testified in the John Woods public corruption trial last month that during a tour of Ecclesia in October 2013, he doubted the financial viability of the college, according to an Arkansas Democrat Gazette report. That visit, according to the report, came after the college received its first state grants. None of those facts give weight to any accusation of criminal wrongdoing on Representative Ballinger's part, and to imply that they do is, as he said online, a dirty tactic. However, they do show negligence and a lack of transparency. The criminal accusations are on the shoulders of John Woods, Micah Neal, and Orrin Parris III, and Randall Shelton, the other legislators who provided funds to the college. Senator Bart Hester, former Representative Randy Alexander, Charlie Collins, Jim Dotson, Deborah Hobbs, and Stephen Meeks must now bear the responsibility of directing thousands of dollars to a school that took the Walton Foundation one look to determine it was financially not a good investment, unsafe. Representative Ballinger specifically now should work to promote transparency, especially when it comes to the college, rather than fight it, as he did just 1 year ago. His insistence that Mr. Parris is innocent and that the Arkansas Press Association did not oppose legislation he supported to change FOIA laws, for that matter, shows a pattern of open falsehoods, denial, or both. He also has several questions to answer. Why does he continue to defend Orrin Parris, who has pled guilty and has had text exchanges with Mr. Woods shown in court, showing he was completely complicit in the scheme. Why did he give to the college when it is outside his district and it benefits so few people? When exactly did he begin providing work for Ecclesia, and how much did he profit? And lastly, does he see that as a conflict of interest, considering he directed funds to the school? Some of those questions have been posed to the sitting representative already. The last was asked at the April 19th debate as part of a multi-part question, but went ignored. Other points were posted on Representative Ballinger's campaign Facebook page, but were promptly deleted. When another Facebook user posted those comments on his own page, Representative Ballinger commented on it, accusing the poster of engaging in dirty politics. Those are not easy questions, the Madison County Record editorial goes on. And it's unfortunate for Representative Ballinger that a high-profile trial surrounding the misuse of funds that several legislators, Representative Ballinger included, helped to direct to the college is taking center stage in the middle of campaign season. But he has a responsibility to his constituents before his campaign. It's not dirty to hold our lawmakers accountable for their actions. It's any citizen's duty. And now it's Representative Ballinger's duty as both a state representative and Senate candidate to clear those muddied waters. Again, this, and also it says a previous version of this article stated that Representative Ballinger directed funds to the Huntsville Fire Department. Officials have disputed this. The Record is looking into the matter. Okay, so this is the reason I know we have to go to break here. The one thing here, and I guess they kind of briefly get into it, but I wish they got into it a little more, is the fact that there is a lawsuit, okay, right now trying to get Ecclesia to turn over these documents about how the general improvement funds were used. And I mentioned this yesterday. We don't have those yet. They're supposed to produce them, but I want to see these documents because I think it's well, look, okay, if you're getting taxpayer money, it doesn't matter if you're a private school. We should know how that money was spent. And, you know, the fact that Representative Ballinger's law firm is involved in representing the school in that lawsuit over whether or not they're going to turn over the documents, and at the same time they're, you know, representing Orrin Paris in the John Woods public corruption trial, it raises a lot more questions than answers. That, like I think the Madison County Record saying is that we need the transparency here. We need the transparency. And in my last interview with Representative Ballinger, we went back and forth, but one of the things I kept saying is this is what the people want. This is what the people are worried about, right? They're worried about the appearance of impropriety or outright impropriety or outright corruption and the idea of disclosure. And when you look at what attorneys, I mean, just look at what Jeremy Hutchinson is Jeremy Hutchinson, mentioned as Senator A in this plea deal with Hank Wilkins down there, right? And we talked about that yesterday. And so I guess my point being is the conclusion we came to yesterday is just the level of corruption in Arkansas politics that is coming out. It's on display for everybody, has every single taxpayer and voter, if you know what's going on, extremely nervous and extremely weary. The trust is at an all-time low right now. And we have to have transparency. And the fact that Brian King tried to 4 times now pass a Medicaid disclosure, which would have exposed all of this stuff that's now coming out in court, or all the stuff that's now coming out in pleas, and then the fact that that didn't get out of Bob Ballinger's committee. I mean, these are, to me, big campaign issues. If you're being asked to pick between the two, I mean, you just got to look at what's going on currently. I mean, in the Madison Record, they certainly they pointed that out. I mean, it's kind of bad luck that all of this stuff is going on in the middle of a campaign, but I actually think it's a good thing. I think the more information we have, the better. So anyway, just something to think about. Again, that piece of Madison County Record editorial, The Muddied Waters of Ecclesia GIF and Representative Ballinger. We have got to take a break. Thank you, Joe. I'm sorry. Make your job harder by talking too long. Back in a minute, folks.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
I talked so long we had to cut one of our parodies that was coming back. Which parody did you cut? I can't remember what we put in there. What was it? Ah, yeah, that was the one where they are taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. Boy, isn't that the case? Isn't that the case? And so much of those parodies, we're trying to use absurdity to illustrate truth, but I mean, at some point, it's not even absurd anymore. I mean, the stuff that they're talking about doing with the grocery tax, studying it further. The majority leader, the governor's nephew, Senator Jim Hendren. Well, so hang on a second. Somebody put out a poll. Joe, you're going to have to find this for us. There's a Twitter handle. That's what it is. There's a Twitter handle out there called Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew. Okay? Now, that's obviously been created. People try to say that it's, it's me or somebody working at Conduit News, and it is not. I can verify that it is. This is a fan of the show that decided to make this Twitter handle. Okay? And they put out a poll the other day. Show this one. This is the one, okay? And this is quoting. Well, they're asking you who said it. Who said it? Quote: people with higher incomes benefit more from the reduced sales on groceries than people with low and moderate income. Who said it? Was it A, Bernie Sanders, or B, Senator Jim Hendren, the governor's nephew? Which one? Who said it? Well, the correct answer is obviously B, Senator Jim Hendren. He said that in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette because their proposal is to raise your grocery tax and then apply an earned income tax credit to people on the lower side of the socioeconomic, whatever that cutoff, whatever that threshold would be, I don't know. And then you would, then all of us, people in the middle class, people who are considered rich, you're going to be paying the full 6.5% sales tax on your groceries. They're going to raise your taxes. That's what they're talking about. It's like, no, nobody's talking. We're going to cut them over here, though. We'll lower them over here. But the rich, you rich people, you benefit more from having. You benefit more than poor people do. This is crazy. I actually thought like Republicans believed in lower taxes. I thought that was something that Republicans believed in. But anyway, who said it? Bernie Sanders or Jim Hendren? We got to take a break. Back in a minute.
They've got Conduit News that is on multiple stations across the state. It's pretty much an attack machine on what I'm trying to accomplish in this state, and their message is getting out, and no one else's message is getting through.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Linda Collins Smith had an outstanding pure bill, a very constitutional bill. They got a hold of it, and they started amending it. And by the time it was through, you had over 50 pages of legislation concerning the carrying of a concealed weapon into places such as government buildings, maybe college campuses, things of this nature. But the government has to mandate what you have to do, and they're all involved in that legislation. You have to go through more training. You have to pay out more money. They mandated the concealed carry instructors, what they were going to have to do. And so it's more government involvement into our lives. And so when you look at the two concerning their gun legislation and their stand on the Second Amendment, I had to come out of the debate saying that Brian King was the one who was the true Second Amendment advocate, while Mr. Ballinger, Representative Ballinger, enjoys involving more government. Now, Mr. Ballinger argued that look at how many more people can carry now in places that they could not carry before. 1,900 people are now carrying in places they could not carry before. Are you serious? In comparison to the population in the state of Arkansas and all of the people who carry under Article 2, Section 5 and Act 746, is going to bring out.
That applies to everybody,
Yes, and you're going to brag about 1,900 people that has this government mandate upon them. In fact, when you look into the enhanced carry legislation and you start reading it closely, the restrictions are great in that bill. I mean, there are numerous restrictions that if you are carrying under the enhanced carry, you don't have near the freedom that you have just carrying under your constitutional right, Paul.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, it really is. We're talking with Dan Bourne for the Patriots of Act 746. It really is a contrast when you think. I never actually thought about that. I mean, I do know that State Representative Bob Ballinger, he was at the press conference last year with ASA and the other folks who were up there, who were supporting this bill, and ASA gave him credit specifically.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So frustrating. So, of course, Conduit for Action, they broke a story. They reminded us of something that Asa said back in 2006. When he said that he wants to eliminate the grocery tax. When he ran for governor in 2006, that was his position. So now he's come out in the paper and he's saying that his position on the grocery tax hasn't changed, or he's saying something along those lines. And it's because it's very politically awkward for him right now that his own task force that he set up to prevent other tax increase bills being heard last year is now looking at raising the grocery tax. And they're doing this because they have to have money for Medicaid expansion. That's the secret truth here that you won't hear them tell you. You won't even hear the media tell you. But the reason is we have a driver of spending, and the hospitals and insurance companies are demanding a guaranteed taxpayer-funded revenue stream to support their industries. And they don't care about the people of Arkansas. They just want their money, and they're making all kinds of profits. They may tell you something different, but they are making so much money off of us. We've got to keep paying them. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's a lot of times people feel like the boot of government is on our necks, and that's true. But in this case, it's the boot of the insurance companies. I mean, they're the boot on our neck. I mean, it's the government that's giving them, basically the government selling them the shoes, or giving them the shoes, or the boots. Anyway. Bad analogy, I know. But what I'm trying to say is we have a spending problem, and the key driver of our spending is Medicaid expansion, and that's why they got to figure out a way to raise taxes and give the government more money, but find a way to spin it and make you think they gave you a tax cut. That's what they're trying to do. You just have to watch both hands, and you have to listen to the carefully crafted language. They're trying to get more money out of you, but they want you to think that they're actually getting less money out of you. So Conduit for Action has a new story that actually highlights how Jan Morgan is standing up for the people of Arkansas on the grocery tax increase issue. Headline here, Governor stands alone on grocery tax. Jan Morgan, who is running for governor in the Republican primary, has been leading the opposition to a grocery tax. She criticizes Asa Hutchinson for failing to rule out a grocery tax increase and for the task force he initiated having a grocery tax increase high on its agenda. Morgan has been joined in her opposition to a grocery tax increase by all the other candidates in the race other than Governor Hutchinson. The two Democrat candidates, Jared Henderson and Letitia Sanders, and the Libertarian candidates, Mark West. Governor Asa Hutchinson is the only candidate in the race for governor who refuses to say, I will not raise the grocery tax. You see, here's the thing, if the governor said that, they wouldn't even be, the legislative task force wouldn't be further studying. If he was like, it's not going to happen. Instead, Governor Hutchinson is trying to finesse his way around the issue with meaningless doublespeak and a defense of moving forward with the task force's debate on raising the grocery tax. Asa's doublespeak. Governor Hutchinson now says he's been a consistent supporter of eliminating the sales tax on groceries. Consistent supporter? He is not a cheerleader waving pom-poms from the sidelines. He is the freaking governor, and he has not even tried to get in the game. Asa is like a person who sees a man drowning but does nothing other than holler, I support you being rescued. We are drowning in taxes, and Asa has done nothing to eliminate the grocery tax as he once promised. We could have done, what could he have done? On his first day in office in 2015, he could have proposed legislation to eliminate all grocery taxes. But even without affecting the local taxes on groceries, he could have proposed legislation to eliminate the portion of state grocery tax being imposed by state statute. He could have proposed a constitutional amendment to exempt groceries from the 1/8 cent state sales tax collected under the Constitution. Asa has not been shy about trying to get a gasoline and diesel tax increase on the ballot, but not a peep about getting a ballot issued to remove groceries from the 1/8 cent sales tax. After 3 years of doing nothing, do you believe Asa is a supporter of eliminating the grocery tax? Even if he changed his tune at this late date, who would believe him? He's in a primary, for goodness sakes. Remember his 2006 campaign pledge to immediately eliminate the grocery tax. Remember his 2014 promise not to increase taxes during his term, and then breaking that promise time and time again. That's right, he said he wouldn't raise any taxes. And yet he advocated for the internet tax. He passed the digital downloads tax. He passed the tire tax. He increased created a new tire tax, increased the current tire tax. And yet he said in 2014, I will not raise any taxes as governor. Now Asa says, well, I'm just encouraging legislative review and debate now. Give me a break. This guy he doesn't like the legislature actually debating things. He only likes the legislature debating things if he sets the goalposts and the window of what can and cannot be considered. You know, he gets to pick that. As long as that, he's fine with it. But if we're talking about actual debate of ideas he doesn't support, case in point, at the beginning of the show, we told you about the gun debate and the debacle and how everybody contorted themselves and bent certain ways so that they wouldn't put a gun bill on the governor's desk that was too conservative for him to sign. He wanted that NRA credit. We got to give something in it, but we have to get something that's more moderate. Asa criticized the other candidates, saying that they are afraid of legislative review and debate. He is referring to the tax task force putting a grocery tax increase high on its list and him failing to oppose the move. Don't forget, this task force is something he proposed. It is set up under his guidelines, and the chairman is his nephew, Senator Jim Hendren. Interesting Asa is for debate when it's a legislative debate that may result in a higher grocery tax, but he is not for a debate with Jan Morgan. Asa's hiding behind legislative debate, Asa's hiding behind legislative debate is reminiscent of a legislator who voted to put an issue on the ballot, and when it turned out to be a stinker, said, "Oh, don't blame me. I didn't vote for the issue. I only voted to let people have a chance to decide." And who has ever bought that line? No one ever, right? That was their line when they tried to increase the gas tax. I'm not for the gas tax increase. I'm just for letting the people decide. It's like, well, no, if you're against tax increases as a policy, then you would do everything in your legislative power to guarantee that the chance of a tax going up does not happen. I never buy that argument. Well, we need the people to decide. No, you're the legislator, okay? You have the power. And so if you vote to put a tax increase on the ballot, you are supporting a tax increase. Because you can say, well, I don't support it, but I support letting the people decide. No, you support a tax increase, right? Let me see here. We don't have the political will to pass a tax increase here legislatively. And I'm against tax increases, right? So why wouldn't I do the one thing that guarantees there won't be a tax increase by not putting a tax increase on the ballot? You see, if you don't put it on the ballot, there's a 100% chance these, quote, anti-tax politicians get what they want, which is supposedly, right, no new taxes. But they'll do anything to spin and try to convince you that they're for less tax, but I just want the people to decide. No, I'm sorry. That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. They tried to do that with a gas tax. And by the way, Democrats in Arkansas have been doing that, using that tactic for years, and Republicans are going right along with them now. Asa's hiding behind legislative debate reminiscent of a legislator who voted to put an issue on the ballot. Anyway, so bottom line, here it is. Jan Morgan is fighting hard to stop Asa in the Republican primary. If she wins, the effort to raise your grocery tax will be dead. Her efforts are being noticed. Other than Asa, all the candidates in the governor's race agree with Jan Morgan. Increasing the grocery tax is bad for Arkansas. Jan Morgan is more in touch with Republican voters and the people of Arkansas than Governor Asa Hutchinson. Or maybe he just doesn't care. Asa is surrounded by people who say, yes, Governor, you can finesse your way through the primary and general elections, and then with a 4-year term, you can raise the grocery taxes and grow government. What do you think about increasing the grocery tax? Whether you are for or against, go vote. There is a candidate who represents you on this issue. Of course, the primary elections are May 22nd, but early voting starts on May the 7th, which is coming up pretty fast right now. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Wow. Isn't it amazing how this is all rolled out? How all of our suspicions and these suspicions are rooted in the fact that our leaders who claim to be conservative in the Republican Party are not what they claim to be. Those are all of our suspicions. And they are always confirmed, it seems. And I have told you before, when we start to speculate about what their long game is, I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope the task farce on taxes is a success. My definition of a success would be that there's now less money going to the government than there is now from the people, meaning the tax burden on the people is now lighter, right? That's my hope. That's what tax relief actually is. And if that happens and I get to eat crow about all my criticism of their work, Fantastic. That'll be the best meal ever, because that would mean Arkansas government has actually been measurably reduced in size and scope. And that's what I'm about, right? But I never have to eat crow on this. I didn't have to eat crow with the task force on Medicaid expansion. I was exactly right on that. Conduit News exactly right on that. We told you from the very beginning, we told you that this was not going to end Medicaid expansion like the governor's nephew said it was. By the way, if Medicaid expansion is ended, somebody please call and tell me. Did I miss it? Do I need to? That's a plate of crow I'd love to eat right now. Nope. Don't have to eat crow because we still have it. On the taxes, though, okay. Well, we're all on the same team on the taxes. We're all on the same team. We're all on the same team. We just agree on Obama. We just disagree on this one thing, this one little thing. It's Obamacare, and we took the lemons and we made lemonade with it. Sorry about that. We made lemonade with the lemons that Obama gave us. That's what we did with. That's what they say. We just disagree on that, though. Just that. We're all on the same team otherwise. And we find out that Republicans were huge advocates in leadership last year of internet sales tax, gas tax, the tire tax, the digital downloads tax. I was like, oh, man. Now the grocery tax. These are Republicans talking about this. And they have the audacity to criticize the people for being angry with them because they're pursuing policies that are more in line with Bernie Sanders than they are with Ronald Reagan or Milton Friedman. And they get mad at us. They get mad at the Liberty Machine that's got that little mirror on it that they have to look into. And they see who they really are, not who they think they are, but this is who you really are. And they get real mad about it. They're listening to me right now, and they're so angry. They're listening right now, and they're upset that we're pointing these things out to you. We're the ones that have to live under the laws that they pass. They are the ones with power. They are the ones with the power of force. And many of these people who are in positions of power and leadership in the Republican Party today are frauds because they ran on popular ideas and they are refusing to implement those ideas now that they're in power. They're frauds. And the sad thing is, and we really have, I mean, I will never forget the lesson that I have seen, the lesson that I have learned based on what I have seen over the course of the last 5 years. And that lesson is that when somebody who claims to be a limited government conservative and campaign that way caves in and says, no, we have to grow government. And in the case, just this one time, we just have to grow government just this one time, talking about Obamacare Medicaid expansion. When it is, in this case, the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history, when that happens, it actually has forced these guys, because they have to support the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history at all costs. But it was just this one time, guys. But it has now put them on a political path and a thought process to where they are now having to support tax increase after tax increase after taxing. I'll never forget this lesson. I will never forget the lesson that I have learned as a conservative watching how government works. It's like, well, next time, well, we gotta grow it. We just gotta grow government just this one time. It's a very complicated situation. You don't understand it. No, the answer is no, because your one bad decision puts you on a path where now you have to make bad decision after bad decision perpetually in order to prop up your first bad decision. And I think there's some sort of political formula here that we could, some sort of theorem we could put on paper here. But that's exactly what I have learned watching these frauds. And it's just embarrassing. Somebody just texted me, and cowards. Frauds and cowards. Yeah, some of them are. Some of them are. You need to have the courage to admit that you made that first bad decision, and everything since then has required you to vote for tax increases because of what the key driver of our spending is now, which is based on your first bad decision. That was gargantuan. It was a gargantuan decision, and it's really terrible. Oh, sorry. All right, Joe. We got to get to this parody, so we got to go to break now. No parody? Oh, I didn't put one in. Okay, good. Never mind. All right, we'll be back in 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. The Declaration of Independence states, to secure these rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In other words, people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, or corrupt, it's because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it's because the people demand these high qualities. If the next centennial does not find us a great nation, it will be because those who represent the enterprise and culture and morality of the nation do not abide in controlling the political forces. James Garfield. This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
right, so yesterday the Supreme Court of the state of Arkansas yesterday said that a new voter ID law can be enforced in the upcoming May 22nd primary elections, despite the fact that a lower court judge, said that you have to put a stay and you can't enforce the new voter ID law. It was a 6-1. 6-1, the Supreme Court put a hold on Pulaski County's decision blocking the law enforcement. Can I say something real quick? I am sick and tired of the courts and the judges in Pulaski County. You guys are way more liberal than judges in the rest of the state. I'm really sick of you guys. I think the judges in Pulaski County are the worst judges in the state. I'm sure some of you are good. I'm just saying you guys are clearly more of an activist court than the courts in the rest of the state. It's obvious. It is obvious. All right, so by a 6-1 vote, the Supreme Court put a hold on Pulaski County judge's decision blocking law enforcement, the law's enforcement rather. And so early voting starts on Monday, the 7th, and so that's why this needed to happen, right? And this is in the wake of Alice Gray, okay, who's a Pulaski County judge. She said last week that the law was unconstitutional effort, and it was an unconstitutional effort to reinstate a 2013 voter ID law. I believe that was Senator King's, that was struck down by the Supreme Court in 2014. So, let's see. So Chris Powell, who's the spokesman for the Secretary of State, Mark Martin, quote, "We now have clear direction from the court that the law we have been operating under since last August remains in effect for the primary election until further orders from the Supreme Court." So anyway, just so you know, you're going to have to show your ID now. And if you don't have an ID and you still want to vote, if you don't have an ID but you still want to vote, you can vote using a provisional ballot, but you have to sign a statement under penalty of perjury that you are who you say you are. So if they find out later that you're not, then you've perjured yourself and you're now vulnerable to prosecution, which completely makes sense to me. This is the most integral part of our society. What sets up everything we have to do is voting. So it should be something that we do guard and make sure people are who they say they are. We have one more hour coming your way next. Don't go anywhere.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 1230 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
They've got Conduit News that is on multiple stations across the state. It's pretty much an attack machine on what I'm trying to accomplish in this state, and their message is getting out, and no one else's message is getting through.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Specifically, that it was his idea because they were at an impasse and they didn't know what to do. And it was his idea. Well, let's have a new tier of red tape, an enhanced carry permission slip, and it has been a disaster. It's going to continue to be. I mean, when you've got the state police ignoring a part of the law and protecting you, the bureaucrats are kind of protecting, the politicians' hides here because they're not actually enforcing the law the way it's written, which would be even more of a disaster with the concealed carry instructors and everything else. But then you look at Brian's bill, which was simply saying, hey, a lot of people don't realize that the government was telling churches there were just no guns allowed in all churches, no guns allowed, period. And it's like, well, let's leave this, let's restore freedom to the people, and let's leave it up to the individual congregations. If you want to have a security plan, if you want people to be able to carry, then you can make that decision yourselves and administer that yourselves, however you see fit.
Without government interference. That's what we, as true Republicans, conservatives, that's what we want. Less government interference in our lives. Get out of our lives, get out of our way, do what you were designed to do, and let us, on the secular, on the private secular side, lead this country back to being great again if you'll just get out of the way. And you know, when you look at the two running for this position at Senate District 5, you look at Brian King. He obviously is not one that is well liked at the Marble Palace, and it's because that he doesn't go down there and play the good old boy game with them. He goes down there to represent the people. He doesn't play the get along game in order to get things done according to the good old boy system. So, you know, the contrast is so great. In fact, King was talking about those who were endorsing him, you know, Mike Huckabee and Terry Rice and others, Charlotte Douglas. And Ballinger brought out that you better be careful because the people that he is saying that endorses him really doesn't. Representative Charlotte Douglas was there at the debate, and she stood up and she said, I absolutely support him. And so Brian King, what he is saying is absolutely correct. You have the difference between a man who makes his primary living farming and then a man who makes his primary living as a lawyer. And I'm not saying all lawyers are bad. I'm not saying that Bob Ballinger is a bad lawyer. I'm just saying look at the contrast.
Well, there certainly is a contrast. There's no doubt about that. Now, I was told when that debate was going on, I was told that there was maybe that. Well, let me ask you this: Did State Representative Ballinger say anything negative about Patriots of Act 746?
Oh boy, Misty Graham, her and her husband Cody Graham, who are Patriots, were at that debate, and she captured it on her with her smartphone. She captured Ballinger. He championed himself as being one of the major co-sponsors of Act 746, and probably was. And he said, and so for the Patriots of Act 746 to not be on board with me is laughable among my peers in Little Rock. And so it came across as if that they laugh at us and scorn us for not being on board with Bob Ballinger. But the problem is when you bring in legislation that is an unconstitutional legislation built off another unconstitutional legislation, which was the whole concealed carry permit farce to enable to.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Oh, man, this is hour number 2. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for being with us. Telephone number 870-275-9799. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. We need your help, though. You got to tell everybody in your sphere of influence about this program, how to get it when they can't listen to it live on terrestrial radio or live on Facebook. We're up at facebook.com/Conduit News. Folks, just go to conduitnews.com, and you have everything there at your fingertips. It's for free, too. For free. You get the video archive of the program. You get the podcast. You can go to iTunes, the iTunes store, not the App Store, but the iTunes store. Search for Conduit News. Get the podcast there. SoundCloud, the same thing. It's extremely easy for you guys to get the show, and I know our podcasts are very popular. And, hey, Joe, can you answer me this question? And I'm ashamed to say that I don't know this, but podcasts are no longer, when you say get the podcast, that's no longer considered an audio-only format. Is that correct? Because it's no longer just considered audio format. It used to just be a podcast was audio only, but now there's so many people with YouTube channels that have what they're calling podcasts that actually have the video included as well, right? Am I right there, or am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay.
I listen to quite a few podcasts on YouTube from people who just either they started a podcast recently, or they've been doing this for a while, where they do both. They'll post the podcast because they'll record it, and they'll have like the table read where everyone's just sitting around the table talking. On YouTube, and then they'll have an audio only version.
Yeah, so it's
in the description.
Either or, yeah. So when we say get the podcast, I mean you can go onto the YouTube channel Conduit News over at YouTube, and you can just get the podcast via video, or you can do the audio only thing with the SoundCloud or iTunes. So we try to make it easy for you. It's obviously it's way less data, if you're going to go work out or something and you don't want to, use your wireless data to stream video, right? Okay. Hey, Gene McVeigh on our Facebook page writes that when Governor Asa Hutchinson disrespects Senator Brian King and calls him irrelevant, he spits in the face of all Arkansans. Hey, you know what? That's a very good point. If you don't know this, was a couple months ago, Senator Brian King was talking about our out-of-control spending. He was talking about Medicaid and the Medicaid mafia, essentially, and the governor was quoted as saying that Brian King is irrelevant. And you know what's funny about that is, I mean, aside from the fact that it's just kind of odd, we've seen a lot of reactions from the governor that kind of let me know that a lot of things are getting to him and maybe has some thin skin here. But first of all, it's just not factually true that Senator Brian King is irrelevant. Number one, he's a senator. Number two, he's tried 4 or 5 times to get a Medicaid disclosure bill that would have exposed all of Ace's buddies like John Woods and Jake Files and whoever else. I mean, who knows? Maybe it would have already exposed Senator Jeremy Hutchinson. Again, I know in the plea deal, the government is not accusing Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, the governor's nephew, of a crime. But, I mean, if the fact is, if legislators had to reveal their potential conflicts of interest, there's no penalty. But if you had to disclose if you're getting extra money from a Medicaid entity, like Preferred Family Health Care, that's in the middle of a federal lawsuit or a federal case, charges up in Missouri. I mean, folks, that doesn't sound irrelevant to me, okay? It sounds very relevant when the governor says that Brian King's irrelevant. No, this was a guy trying to stand up and point out, I mean, what everybody already, you know how I was talking about yesterday, everybody was hinting at the truth, everybody's hinting around the truth, how everybody knew John Woods had carved out a financial niche for himself. Well, if everybody knows it, well, there was one guy that was trying to do something about it. And I said, well, okay, we'll just force you to disclose this stuff. And it failed. It's failed 4 or 5 times. Anyway. Let me see here. What else do we have? Yeah, okay, I want to speaking of the governor. Okay, this is what I'm speaking of the governor. Yeah. I started going over the governor's campaign ads. His old ones. I mean his old ones. All the way back in 2006. He had this quite comical, I felt like it was a well-done ad where his, I'm assuming his family was, just kind of, it's grandkids or something, and, they're trying to, it was an ad while they were trying to shoot an ad. You see that one, Joe? Yeah, grandkids. This is an ASA ad from 2006. And this is what it says. Listen.
I'm Asa Hutchinson, and as governor, I'll protect good local schools and reward our teachers. I'll eliminate the grocery tax right now. Preserve property rights. Fight illegal immigration. Stop meth dealers and create good jobs. I'm Asa Hutchinson. If I can make a
All right, so if I can make a commercial with all this going on, I can do okay. Now, there's a ton of stuff there. Now, number one, that's another doubling down on the fact that he wants to eliminate the grocery tax. Well, his own task force is now talking about raising it. Like, that's pretty cut and dry right there. But back it up, Joe. Play it from the beginning. I want to stop. When he says I'll oppose illegal immigration, I want to make sure everybody hears this part where he says I will oppose illegal immigration.
I'm Asa Hutchinson, and as governor, I'll protect good local schools and reward our teachers. I'll eliminate the grocery tax right now. Preserve property rights. Fight illegal immigration.
Stop. Fight illegal immigration. Now, what's interesting about this, and this was in 2006, and this issue is what was so popular at propelling Donald Trump to the White House. I feel like we have to. A lot has changed from 2006 to now, but one of the things I think a lot of people didn't understand, the political establishment, the elite, they certainly didn't understand what a hot-button issue it has been, it still is, the fact that our border security is essentially meaningless and we don't enforce our immigration laws. So the governor in 2006 says he will fight illegal immigration. But the governor in 2017 opposed a sanctuary campus bill after we had students on one of our Arkansas campuses petition the school for sanctuary policies. And so there was an issue, a clear issue, and so there happened to be in session at the time. So there was a bill filed to try to give the universities guidance by saying, you guys will never set up a sanctuary campus policy. The people basically trying to control what kind of policies come out of the universities. This was met with the universities not wanting this, and the governor quoted as saying that he doesn't want to promote a climate of fear at the universities. So I just want to point out that we have, maybe his mind changed. Maybe his mind changed from 2006 to 2017. But it is interesting that there is just a clear example here of someone saying one thing, but once they're in office, coming up with excuses as to why we don't want to. Well, I'll fight illegal immigration, but I don't want to set up a climate of fear. I want to fight illegal immigration by not setting up a climate of fear at our universities. Interesting. Now, times are different. Times are changing. I understand with the DACA situation. I still, on the whole DACA situation, I am still amazed at the truth that Donald Trump negotiated with the Democrats and gave them everything they wanted as long as Trump got what he wanted. And the Democrats said, no, we really don't care about these kids. We care more about them being victims so we can use them to amass political power than we do about actually giving them legal status and attempting to, end the climate of fear. Telephone number is 870-275-9799. So that was an old ad from 2006. Oh, by the way, as I was looking at these yesterday, you guys should check it out. I found an article, I found a video from back in 2006 where Karl Rove came to Arkansas to campaign for Governor Asa Hutchinson. And he was talking about the things that Asa had done in Homeland Security, trying to end. He said, Karl Rove said in 2006 that Asa had ended the catch and release policy. Now, so then I started saying catch and release. Well, isn't that what Donald Trump is having to end now? And so then I started researching the catch and release policy, and it's in dispute. Who started the catch and release policy? Was it Obama? Did Obama start catch and release? Well, no. Or Karl Rove in 2006 wouldn't have said that Asa ended the catch and release policy at the border. This is what Karl Rove said. I mean, you can go look at the video. I don't have it in queue right now, but so then I started doing more research, and it is in dispute. It is kind of in dispute as to when the catch and release policy at the border started, but a lot of people think it actually started under President George W. Bush, that's when the catch and release policy started, that it didn't start with Obama. And clearly it didn't start with Obama, again, if Karl Rove wouldn't have said that Asa ended catch and release. And then here's the thing. Clearly Asa didn't end catch and release, or maybe he did and then Obama put it back in. But, I mean, I'm saying what I'm trying to say is it's still a problem today. Because I read last week, I feel like, where Donald Trump, there's an article saying Donald Trump is now finally ending the catch and release policy. It's very weird. I really don't know what the actual facts are on it because there's just so many conflicting reports about this catch and release policy. But what I'm saying is when you go to YouTube and you start searching this stuff, you'll be amazed at what you can find. I was like, Karl Rove. Karl Rove. There's also George W. Bush campaigning for Asa Hutchinson as well. So that's interesting. Well, I mean, when you just like it's what Asa says. Any criticism that Asa gets, Asa responds by saying, "I've been a Republican for 40 years or 30 years or whatever." Well, okay. If that's the D.C. experience, that is an establishment, of course you're going to, have friends. Your friends are going to be people like Karl Rove and the Bushes. Which, by the way, remember when Jeb Bush in the primary stood on his tippy toes to try to look taller than the other candidates when they did the wide shot because he thinks that you're all stupid and this was all just theater and it was about trying to convince you? I mean, he's basically playing a part. Remember that? Go look that photo up. That is one of the most telling photos. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Doesn't even begin to describe it. Go look in the primary election with the Republicans. You had Donald Trump, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio. All those guys are up there. And Jeb Bush stands on his tippy toes as the and I think there's it's actually a video. So as the bulbs start going off from the cameras, it's like Jeb goes into this ballet stance and stands on his tippy toes. And you can tell he's holding it. It's like, holding it while the cameras, and then as soon as the cameras, he lets down just so he can appear an inch or two taller than he is. That alone gives you a mentality that this is not real to these people. This is a performance to these people. This is a way to amass political power over the masses, and you do it by not being real. You do it by standing on your tippy toes to look a little taller than everybody else. And again, that's why Donald Trump is so refreshing. Or he still is, in my opinion. And I didn't support him in the primary. And I thought I was very upset during the primary. I don't know if you guys remember. I was upset. I didn't understand what was going on. I was just completely out of touch. I didn't get it. I mean, I'll admit it. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand the appeal that Donald Trump has, but I definitely understand the hatred that the establishment has for him now, because he's not status quo, not at all. Saudi Arabia recognized Israel's right to exist. The Korean Peninsula is going to be denuclearized. The Iran deal is essentially history. Iran pulled out of their own deal after what Israel did and Benjamin Netanyahu did. The reason they can't stand Donald Trump is because Donald Trump is just like them. But he's just honest about it. All these guys in the political, circles, they're probably, not all of them, but a lot of them are probably just like Donald Trump, but they're just like that behind closed doors. And Donald Trump is just like, this is who I am all the time, and it's just refreshing and it's an honest take. Anyway, I would just tell you this. The Heritage Foundation even came out and said, Donald Trump's first year more successful than Ronald Reagan's. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
Bob Maloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a Blue Ribbon Task Force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a Blue Ribbon Legislative Task Force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who's deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, so 7 states, speaking of DACA, I should have said this, but 7 states have now sued to end DACA, including the state of Arkansas, joined on to that lawsuit. So Attorney General Leslie Rutledge wanting to end DACA. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the details of this suit, they just don't believe the president has the authority to do what he did. They don't believe Obama had the authority to do what he did. I mean, so that puts it really in the lap of Congress that they should have done something by now, or maybe they don't do something. I mean, we do have a serious problem. I mean, illegal immigration is a serious problem for our country. It affects our. It makes it hard to have a form of predictability when it comes to economic security and jobs, availability of jobs and things like that. And it also promotes our welfare system. Do you know how illegal immigration promotes our welfare system? We were just listening to a clip of Asa Hutchinson say he's against illegal immigration back in 2006. But, of course, he didn't want to support the sanctuary campus bill that would have prevented Arkansas universities from being sanctuary campuses. He didn't support it, and it died because he didn't support it. And, of course, Asa has a strong welfare stance when it comes to supporting Arkansas Works at all costs to give insurance companies billions of dollars. But this is how illegal immigration supports our welfare system. It enables our welfare system. You want to know how? Paul, have you ever heard this? We have to have illegal immigration because those people are doing the jobs that Americans just won't do. It's weird. It's like there's certainly a tinge of racism there, by the way. They're doing the jobs that Americans just won't do. Do you know why? Because the U.S. government and the state of Arkansas is paying Americans to not do those jobs. They are on welfare. They are being paid to not work. And that's how illegal immigration enables our welfare system today. We'll be back in just a moment.
Got Conduit News that is on multiple stations across the state. It's pretty much an attack machine on what I'm trying to accomplish in this state, and their message is getting out and no one else's message is getting through.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
In order to support the state police, then you build another bill on top of that.
Yeah.
How can you say, how can you expect people who want constitutional carry to be recognized to support it? Mm-hmm. It's impossible.
Yeah, well, the enhanced carry legislation undermined Act 746. Yes. I mean, it doesn't negate it. It just undermines it because it advances a public perception, and it ends up fooling people into what they think the law is.
That's absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. And so when you look, I'm just telling you, when you look at this debate, and I videoed it for those, and a couple of others may have videoed it as well, and you can go on my timeline and pull it up and look at it and watch it if you so desire. But determine for yourself and see. But
yeah, Dan,
Brian King.
Let me ask you this. I want to shift subjects for a second because we're going to run out of
Yeah.
time. You're a pastor, and I really appreciate you coming on the program the way you do. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we've had some good biblical discussions before. Last week, I think it was last week, yeah. And so 2 weeks ago, Senator Jason Rapert called Jan Morgan a liar on social media. Then last week, he called her a Jezebel in responding to some men in his district who were voting for her or encouraging people to vote for her. And he seemed to suggest that they were being deceived because of her spirit of Jezebel. And I'm just curious, as somebody who is a pastor over a congregation, what are your thoughts on that tactic?
That's interesting that you brought that up, because currently right now on Sunday afternoons and Wednesday nights, I'm leading a study called How to Study the Bible, and we are studying the kings right now, and we're currently looking at King Ahab, who was the king of the northern kingdom while Israel was divided. And guess who was his wife? Jezebel. She was the most evil, most corrupt, she was such a horrible, terrible woman. Jan Morgan.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Here we are. We're back. 870-275-9799. Yeah, so let's take a look at some of Governor Asa Hutchinson's campaign ads from 2014. Okay. Let's go with, let's see, what do we have? We have, so let's go with something new. This is the one that stood out to me the most, okay? The one ad where Asa was talking about something new. We're going to play it, and then I'm going to dissect. Listen.
There's a lot of negativity in politics these days, so I thought you'd be ready for something a little different. Like what I'll do as governor. Arkansans pay the highest income taxes in the region. Let's lower them. Put computer science in every high school and demand high expectations and choice. Give our workers the training they need to compete and stand up every day to Washington's overreaching regulations. I'm Asa Hutchinson. As governor, we'll hit the ground running and never look back.
Boy, I mean, there's a lot. Such a huge difference. Such a huge difference, right? Between what was said in 2014 based on where we are now. I mean, let's kind of go over it. From the beginning, we're going to start and stop here. Let's start from the top. Okay.
A lot of negativity in politics these days, so I thought you'd be ready for something a little different.
Stop.
Like
Asa in 2014 says that he's something different. Something different. This is, I just think, factually, I mean, if you look at the status quo, the Democrat Party, essentially legislatively for 138 years, has control. Massive Republican majorities now in the legislature. And for the first time, a Republican governor. Not the first Republican governor in 130 years, obviously. I'm just saying for the first time you've got the trifecta, the House, the Senate, and the governorship. So obviously, yes, something different is the slogan, because everybody knows, yeah, we finally got it. People who've been knocking doors for 30 years when you couldn't go to church in some cases and be a Republican and, you know, get the respect of the other congregants. And finally, people started actually voting their values issue by issue and voting for smaller government. Yeah, you would think. Something different, though. We have liberal policies still in place. The only thing I could see that Asa actually did that was different is defund Planned Parenthood of the Heartland. Good for you. It was the obvious choice. They were selling baby body parts, and we had them on video, so that's not a hard choice. But very glad that he did it. Of course, Arkansas Works, taxpayer dollars are going to fund Plan B, the Plan B pill, which is abortifacient, which is, that's kind of hard to stand on that ground. But anyway, people don't like to talk about Arkansas Works, taxpayer dollars being used to fund abortion pills. People don't like to talk about that, but it does go to fund that. And so a lot of these pro-life Republicans are actually pretty hypocritical. When there's enough money involved, just Plan B. If it were called Plan A, maybe I'd be opposed to it. But it's called Plan B. It's just Plan B. Okay, so that's the first thing. Something different. Do you believe that Asa was, in fact, what he said he was when he said, I think that Arkansas is ready for something different? Do you think there has been a noticeable difference from the Democrat governors of the past, the Democrat-controlled status quo, to what Asa has done in 3.5 years? Increasing spending by $600 million and bending over backwards to keep a socialist health care program alive in Arkansas from a socialist president. Is that something different? Or is that more of the same? Okay, that's the first of it. Back again, Asa 2014 said this, asking for your vote.
Like what I'll do as governor. Arkansans pay the highest income taxes in the region. Let's lower them.
Stop. Does Arkansas still pay the highest taxes? Are we still the highest tax state in the region? Yes. Yes, we are. We also spend more money per capita to run our government than other states around us. Arkansas, after 3.5 years, is still basically right where it was. I mean, they lowered the income tax from 7% to 6.9%. I mean, essentially, that means, ladies and gentlemen, that before Asa was in office, you couldn't go to before Asa was in office, you couldn't go to the movies as much, but you could go to the movies maybe one extra time after that 7 to 6.9% cut. Or you could go like, hey, go have a Big Mac. You get to have a Big Mac once a year that you didn't have before Asa was. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We're still among the most heavily taxed. Okay, again, Asa 2014 said this.
Computer science in every high school and demand high expectations and choice.
Stop. We want to put computer science in every high school, and we want to put high expectations and choice. Okay, now, this is something he has done, not the choice part. This is something he has done in the computer coding area. I don't understand it. I honestly don't, but he talks about it constantly. He constantly talks about computer coding. So, yeah, the only benefit I can see is that maybe in about 18 years, we'll have quality employees at DHS that can actually run the software that we keep spending millions of dollars on that doesn't work. So maybe that's the long game. We'll actually have efficiency in government agencies once we get people to take the computer coding classes and graduate them and funnel them into government jobs. But he has done the computer coding. But what did he say about choice? Now, that's a school choice thing. He's saying that we need to have school choice. He's saying we need to have school choice. Now, here's where it's going to get tricky, and I'm going to make a lot of people mad. But State Representative Jim Dotson's bill on school choice They couldn't get it passed. It failed. Now, in part, I mean, State Representative James Sturch, who carries the governor's water, he rose and spoke against it for the first time, or he rose for the first time ever and went to the well and spoke against it, and the bill died. The governor's official position on that bill is that he supported that bill, the school choice legislation. But if you were at the Marble Palace like I was, and you were talking to Marble Palace dwellers the way I was, and you knew that there was actual negotiations going on, and that the governor did not support the school choice bill because he was getting phone calls from the right people saying, don't you do this. So eventually, though, to save face, the governor came around, and he publicly, at the very last minute, they had made certain amendments, and the governor supported the school choice bill. And if you talk to some people, they'll say he publicly supported it, but, well, let's just say legislators were then inundated with phone calls from the educational industrial complex types who are, back home in the counties, and basically, I mean, yeah, if you can publicly support something, if you don't support something and you know the bill's going to fail, politically, it might make sense for you to publicly support something, but at the same time go through back channels and kill the bill. Again, his official position is he supported that bill when it was all said and done. But I talked to lobbyists down there who were so frustrated that they were not getting a strong stance on school choice from Governor Asa Hutchinson. They were very frustrated. So, you be the judge. This, by the way, this ad was entitled Something Different from 2014. More, what else did Governor say he wanted to do?
Give our workers the training they need to compete and stand up every day to Washington's overreaching regulations. I'm Asa Hutchinson.
Stop. Okay. Got to give our workers the training they need to compete. Maybe that was maybe that might be the most honest thing he said in this ad in terms of just kind of a foreshadowing of Arkansas Works. But Arkansas Works, there's still no work requirements. I mean, they're not implemented yet. They'll conveniently be implemented after the primary, meaning they won't be implemented. We're just going to say they're going to be implemented. That's my fear. What else did he say? Oh, and constantly stand up to Washington's, his pronunciation, Washington's over regulation. Every day, stand up to Washington's regulation. Yeah, tell that to CNH Hog Farm. Tell that to them. Yeah, that's a state issue, but it's actually rooted in EPA activism, which I know Scott Pruitt's there. He's doing a good job now, but I'm just saying, like, the George Soros-funded Sierra Club is the reason CNH Hog Farm essentially got pushed around by the government after they dotted every I and crossed every T, and then the government comes out and pulls the rug out from under them and tells them the wrong things after they've complied or move forward based on assuming the government was telling them the truth. They weren't. Well, and that's ACE's Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. So, okay, let's go to the last ad, shall we? That's basically it. This was back in 2014. I think we've dissected what he said versus what has happened. 2014, another Asa Hutchinson ad. It sounded like this.
Arkansas's next governor will have to stand up to Washington liberals like President Obama and Nancy Pelosi. I'm Asa Hutchinson, and I've fought for conservative ideals all my life, like tax cuts for middle-class families. I've always defended the sanctity of life, never wavered, and I believe in the Second Amendment, just what it says. And Obamacare, I've always opposed it, always will. I'll be a governor with Arkansas values and Arkansas.
Oh, man. I just wanted to get that Obamacare one in there. That one doesn't need much analyzing, aside from the fact that he doesn't oppose Obamacare. He's bent over backwards to keep it. I believe in the Second Amendment, just what it says. No, you don't. You believe in enhanced carry, sir, which is not the Second Amendment, not what it says. Notice in that ad he was holding a shotgun, right? In his ads now, he's holding what appears to be some sort of 9mm, I would guess. And his grip is needs a little work. But you know why? Instead of holding a shotgun, because the Second Amendment is not about hunting, instead of holding a shotgun, he's now holding a sidearm in his new ads for 2018, and it's because Jan Morgan is a gun range owner and a certified NRA instructor, and so she knows her firearms and is way more knowledgeable about weapons than Governor Asa Hutchinson is. And so in order to make himself look comparable, and it's an attempt, I don't think it's successful, but in order to make himself look comparable to Jan Morgan, his Second Amendment ads now have him holding a handgun instead of that shotgun. Interesting contrast from 2014 to now. Misty on Facebook writes, "Hunt them ducks, because that's what the Second Amendment is for." Yep. Everybody knows it. I believe in the Second Amendment. Just what it says. Can we hear that part again? Can we back it up just a little bit? I just want to hear that part one more time. I want to remind everybody about constitutional carry.
Always defended the sanctity of life, never wavered. And I believe in the Second Amendment, just what it says. And Obamacare...
All right. Oh, that Obamacare one drives me nuts. Just what it says. And if it wasn't for Jan Morgan in the race, the governor would not have even made his failed attempt to clarify that we have constitutional carry. Oh, by the way, Oklahoma is now, I think, the 19th state in the union. They voted, I think, 33 to single digits to become the next constitutional carry state in the United States of America. Welcome to the club, Oklahoma. Anybody out there listening, that's a good thing. But yeah, if Jan Morgan wasn't running for governor, we wouldn't have any of these attempts at Asa painting himself as conservative. We wouldn't have any of that. But he came out and said we're a constitutional carry state, but his definition of constitutional carry, Asa says, is that you still have to have a concealed carry permit in order to carry concealed, which is not the definition of constitutional carry. He did that to protect the Arkansas State Police budget, and now, you have, it makes it kind of a campaign issue. I mean, Jan knows the actual definition of constitutional carry. Anyway, if it wasn't for Jan Morgan running, Asa wouldn't have announced in a political fashion that he plans to reduce state agencies by 50% if reelected. If it wasn't for Jan Morgan running for governor, Asa Hutchinson wouldn't have announced that he plans to reduce the state income tax from 6.9% down to 6%. All of these things wouldn't have happened if Jan Morgan wasn't running for governor. It has certainly been interesting to watch, to get Asa to actually acknowledge what the voters care about. Interesting pivots. We've got to go to break, folks. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. You can find out more at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews. Head on over to the YouTube page and subscribe and select the notifications button, Conduit News over at YouTube, so you get our smaller, shorter videos. We've got to take a break. Back in a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. The Declaration of Independence states, to secure these rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In other words, people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, or corrupt, it's because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it's because the people demand these high qualities. If the next centennial does not find us a great nation, it will be because those who represent the enterprise and culture and morality of the nation do not abide in controlling the political forces. James Garfield. This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
I'll give you a little brief corruption trial
Need
update.
your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I jumped the gun on that. Give you a little brief update. Public corruption trial of John Woods. The jury is in the middle of deliberations. I was getting kind of nervous yesterday. I was expecting a verdict yesterday. I think we may have a verdict today. I mean, how long does it take to just say guilty 17 times? Come on, jury. What are you doing? No, late in the day, Doug Thompson reports that late in the day yesterday, the jury asked the U.S. District Judge Timothy Brooks to clarify a term. They wanted to know the definition or clarify the term honest services wire fraud, which is one of the 17 counts he's facing. Including 15 counts of fraud, all relating to either wire or mail transfer of money. Well, honest services fraud. Honest services would be, public service as a public official. So anyway, it's very interesting. The reason I was getting nervous is John Woods. Is something going to happen? Is John Woods going to walk on this? I mean, what's taking the jury so long here? So I don't know. Who knows? Anything is possible. But listen to this. Back on March 2nd, in a ruling, Judge Timothy Brooks said this, quote, "The government's investigation into these and related matters is still ongoing, and it extends beyond the individuals and acts that have been charged in this particular case," meaning they are still investigating people who were not brought up on charges this time. Among other things, quote, "Among other things," the judge said, "the investigation involved the tracing of legislative acts, the making and approval of GIF grants on a regional level, and the ensuing paper trail of disbursements, receipts, and proof that all of the proceeds were used as authorized." This is why we need those Ecclesia College documents. This dragnet involved the collection of an enormous number of documents, a number that has been represented to the court as extending into the millions. They have millions of documents, according to Judge Timothy Brooks. The investigations are still ongoing. As of March 1st, they were still ongoing as they were doing all their pretrial maneuvering for the public corruption case of John Woods. And I just want everybody to know that you have Hank Wilkins, who just pled guilty, former senator. And in that plea deal, Senator A is mentioned, who is identified to be as Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, the governor's nephew. Now, he is not implicated in anything. The government is not accusing him of doing anything illegal. But when Judge Timothy Brooks says that the investigation involved, quote, "the tracing of legislative acts," this is why the Bureau of Legislative Research, which communicates with legislators about laws and they write the laws for them, this is why the Bureau of Legislative Research hired outside counsel to deal with the FBI's documents request. And again, their documents are in the millions. But I would remind you that the attorney or the law firm that the Bureau of Legislative Research hired is connected to the same legal services that are representing Preferred Family Health Care and Tom and Bontia Goss, which doesn't make any sense that particular counsel would have been approved by the legislature. There's just too much sharing of information. Come on. We weren't born yesterday, folks. Anyway, follow Conduit News on Twitter if you want the latest updates as soon as the John Woods verdict is reached. Conduit News will be there reporting. Follow them on Twitter at Conduit News. Arkansas, be safe. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday.